20 Survey Method. Contents: 20.1 Introduction, 20.2 Rationale of Survey Research Method, 20.3 History of Survey Research, 20.4 Defining Survey Research, 20.5 Sampling and Survey Techniques, 20.6 Operationalizing Survey Research Tools, 20.7 Advantages and Weaknesses of Survey Methods, and 20.8 Conclusion. Learning objectives. It is expected that after reading Unit 20, you will be able to proceed with organizing a mini research project in terms of preparing for data collection. Work out the relevance of survey method of data collection for your research. Spell out the techniques of carrying out a survey in your own research. Gain confidence in pointing out benefits and weakness of the survey method to be used by you in your research. 20.1 Introduction. In Block 5, you acquired, whenever required, the skills of carrying out the statistical calculation for arriving at significant result from the data collected during research. The question arises as to how do you collect data? What are the different methods, ways, gathering relevant facts regarding the subject of your research? Unit 20 is about one of the ways of collecting facts and figures pertinent to your research. The unit begins with the question of why should one use the survey method of data collection. Next, it goes into the historical background of survey research and explain what is survey research. It mentions the practices of sampling in data collection but does not go into the details because Unit 15 in Block 5 and Unit 21 in Block 6 deal with this subject of sampling in ample detail. The unit discusses how to actually carry out a survey and outlines the advantage and weakness of survey research. Unit 20 is only an introductory note on the important subjects of surveys method. Unit 21 and 22 and 23 provide you with full details of survey research so that you may actually carry out a survey as per your mini research project. A requirement for completing MSO 002. I hope that you have selected a topic for your research project and identified its methodology. 20.2 Rationale of Survey Research Method. Social science research techniques are often classified in two categories, namely qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative research enables us to understand the subtle aspect of social relations. They are particularly useful when one is interested in probing a specific questions in depth, its meaning, and their different interpretations. However, qualitative methods also have their limitations. They are, for example, more suitable when research is being carried out in a small setting or is focused on a specific group or community. Qualitative research methods are not very useful when we need to know about macro phenomena, such as the demographic structure of a population or the extent and nature of the poverty or disease. Quantitative methods or survey research enable us to study these questions into a more comprehensive manner. Depending upon the requirement, survey research can be extended to as large as an area, population as a whole nation or even the entire world. Thus, when the universe of study is large and the research are looking for broad trends or patterns in a given population, they often resort to survey methods. In other words, qualitative and quantitative research methods are not opposed to each other. They are complementary. The two can be combined, one enriching the other. An important feature of survey research is that unlike qualitative methods, which are generally used by specialist researchers, survey research does not have the monopoly of sociologists or economists. Surveys have become a part and parcel of modern life, constituting almost any industry. Okay. So the contemporary world is often described as the information society. This implies that the flow of information has become its most crucial and central aspect. Recent advances in telecommunication technologies have made this flow of information easier as well as critical for working of present day society, its politics and economics. As is the case with the information society, agrarian and industrial societies too were products of major breakthroughs in technology. Some sociologists think that there have been primarily three revolutions in human history, namely agricultural revolution, urban revolutions, and industrial revolutions. However, the agriculture and industrial societies are defined primarily in terms of their major economic activity, that is, the nature and means of production. By comparison, the term information society has a different connotations, while production, whether agriculture or industrial, continues to be central. It is carried out in a regime of information. In decision making process, farmers and factory owners work on the basis of available information. In some cases, the products themselves generate such informations before they plan production of certain commodities. Similar, consumers decides about consumption according to the information that mass media make available to them. Markets depend a great deal on the flow of information. Each time a company decided to launch a new product, it undertakes extensive marketing surveys about the taste and purchasing powers of potential buyers. Producers are expected to provide information about their products to potential buyers through advertisement, particularly in those media which have a larger impact on the people. Informations, information, its production and distribution has also become an important sector of economic system. It's provide employment to a large number of people and generates a huge amount of wealth. There are a number of professional organizations and companies in almost every country that carry out surveys of all kinds of clients, from business houses to political parties. This is what we mean when we said earlier that survey is in any industry in the contemporary world. Information has also become crucial for the modern state and the functioning of the democratic system. Almost the entire policy making process of the modern welfare state is based on information. See box number 20.1. Box number 20.1, information gathering by the state. Various organizations of the state collect all possible informations about its populations through periodic consensus and surveys. The Government of India, for example, has a specialist body known as National Sample Survey Organization, which periodically undertakes sample surveys of Indian population on various social and economic parameters. The data that is generated is used by various government agencies for formulating policies and programs. Similarly, the Indian Planning Commission also has a program evaluation wing which undertakes surveys in order to evaluate the working of various development programs. Other departments of the government also sponsor surveys focused on the issues of their concern. Similar institutions are found in other parts of the world. The point is that the information about populace is essential not only for governance but also for formulating and executing the programs of development, and such information is generated through periodically carried out surveys. Global agencies involved with development activities either generate their own information about the economic well-being of populations in different parts of the world or depend upon the available data on various subjects such as poverty, unemployment, health. The World Bank has the different agencies of United Nations periodically publish reports on different aspects of the existing state of affairs in a given country. The political process too has become information oriented. Political parties in modern democracy closely monitor public opinion and articulate their priorities accordingly. Similarly, citizens in modern democracies also form their own about various political parties in the basis of information they get from several sources. Psephologists, I think I am correctly pronouncing it, who carry out surveys on public opinion before elections and make predictions or projections about the possible outcome of elections, have come to acquire respectable place in politics and media. Television channels and newspapers undertake elaborate survey during election times on the prospects of various political parties and the voting behavior of people. Similarly, countries like the United States of America and other Western democracies The media and the corporate constantly monitor the popularity ratings of their leaders and political parties, both in power and outside. Besides the fact that surveys have gained in importance in the modern world, they have always been an important research method. They have been used for understanding the emerging trends of or patterns in a given population or for testing hypotheses. Some of them may have policy implications, while some may be purely for academic interest. For example, sociologists interested in undertaking the process of secularization may undertake surveys on how often people perform religious rites, rituals in their everyday social, economical, and political life. 20.3 History of Survey Research. Though systematically carried out surveys have a short history, rulers in the past have always been interested in finding out what was going on in their states and the condition of their subjects. There are umpteen stories of rulers of their representatives going to meet the public, sometimes incognito, with the explicit intent of inquiring about their welfare and needs of discontent. This was considered extremely important for proper rule. In ancient times, Roman emperors polled surveys of their citizens. The Victorian social reformists undertook survey and interviewed 10 to 20,000 persons for seeking an adequate representations of opinions. However, survey research in its systematic form began after the Industrial Revolution and urbanization of Europe. Karl Marx was perhaps the first social scientist to collect information from some key information about the conditions of industrial workers and try to relate it to this theory of class society and class struggle. On the basis of such data, he also tried to quantify workers' exploitation in terms of working hours and wages rates. See box 20.2 for early surveys. Box 20.2 some early surveys. The first systematic survey was supposedly carried out by Henry Mayhew, a Scottish philosopher and social reformer who wanted to find out about the living conditions of Edinburgh in the early 19th century and asked ordinary people to report their situation. With reformist zeal, Charles Booth initiated a survey on labor and life of the people of London in 1886. The finding of this survey was published in 17 volumes between 1889 and 1902. Around the same time, several other surveys were carried out, mostly in Great Britain and elsewhere in the Western world, focusing primarily on the measurement of poverty. Poverty is okay. Defining 20.4 Defining survey research. Survey research is basically a method of gathering information from a population of a given subject. Unlike qualitative research, survey research invariably covers a large population, but it does not imply that it collects information from each and every individual. Statisticians have designed various methods of drawing a representative sample from a given population, which can reveal trends for the entire population. Quantitative research methods are often classified in two types, namely census and sample-based survey methods research. When information is gathered from each and every member of the population, or in other words, when all units of the populations are covered for information, it is called census. But it is an expensive, lengthy, and time-consuming process. Therefore, we focus on a portion or a unit of the population. It is from the study of part that we arrive at an understanding of the whole. When a part or a section or a unit of a population is studied, it is called the sample survey research. The term sample is used for the part of population that is subjected to study. Identifying such a portion of sample population is not easy. In order to make a survey scientific and representative, one must follow a scientific procedure. So 20.5 is about sampling and survey techniques. Sampling is a method that identifies a representative number for a given universe of population. There are two basic properties of a sample. It should be adequate. It shouldn't be representative of the universe, the entire population. The most crucial point in sampling is to make sure that one's personal values do not influence the selection process. In order to keep our research unbiased, researchers' bias, various techniques and procedures of selecting a sample have been suggested. For detailed information of sampling seen in Unit 15 of Block 5 and Unit 21 of Block 6. Let us at this stage complete reflections and actions 20.1 exercise. Reflection and action 20.1. You can assess the usefulness of a survey in terms of its purpose, and therefore it is necessary that you do not confuse the kinds of material you are going to collect. In order to gain more clarity of this point, answer the following questions on a sheet of paper. Is the survey of facts that you count yourself the same as the survey of facts which is reported by respondents and only tallied by the researcher? Are the respondent's opinion or the statement about the item not social facts and as such worth researching about? Is it now necessary to consider whether and how you would locate them in the social context and use to fill out your understanding of the facts that you counted yourself? 20.6 Operationalizing survey research tools. An important step in any kind of research is the preparation of the research tools. Survey research is typically carried out with the help of a questionnaire or interview schedule. Preparing a questionnaire and interview schedule is the most important step in survey research. See box 20.3 on the difference between a questionnaire and an interview. Box 20.3, the difference between a questionnaire and an interview. When the respondents themselves fill in the answers or responses to the questions asked, it is called questionnaire. In a schedule that investigators read out the questions to the respondents and fill in the responses in a schedule. So there are different ways of approaching a respondent. The simplest way to approach a potential respondent directly, that is how most surveys are concluded. A research team would invariably go to a village or a locality and try talking to the head of the household. Questionnaires are also sent by mail. Such questionnaires are called mailed questionnaires. Another method of approaching the respondent is the household drop-off survey. This is the researchers go to the respondent's home or business and hand over the questionnaires to the respondent. The respondents can be questions to mail them back to the researchers, or researchers may personally go to collect them at a later date. Some researchers have also started using telephones for approaching respondents and filling the interview schedule through conversation over phone. So telephone interviews have become a popular mode of carrying out surveys in countries like United States of America. There are obvious advantages of such approach. Telephone interviews can give a lot of time, but can also cover a large area of populations through telephone surveys without having to travel. The researchers can also approach the respondent at a later date and ask follow-up questions. Today, email is also being used for mailing questionnaires. However, in a country like India, telephones or email are still a privilege for few. Though some rural areas, I think the picture is changing, but still many places it's like that. Though some rural areas are now connected by telephone, not every household have a telephone connection. In fact, only a small portion of the entire population in cities have telephone connections. Thus, only in a certain kinds of research where the respondents are largely from middle class backgrounds, that one can use the method of telephonic interviews. In such settings now, everyone will be willing to respond positively to a request for an interview or on a telephone. Even when they agree, the interviews generally will have to be short and precise. Perhaps the best way of carrying out a survey is through personal interviews. Unlike the mail surveys or telephone interviews, in personal interviews, the researchers has an opportunity of not only getting responses from the respondents directly, but also get the opportunities of probing some questions which may be beyond the scope of the survey, but may help in enriching the data, finding answers to certain critical questions, and sometimes even in identifying further questions. Once the data have been collected, the researchers have to codify and process the data in a manner that is become presentable in tabular form and charts. It should also become accessible for use for statistical treatments that would tell us about the different qualities of data. Issues relating to processing the data and its presentations in the report will be discussed in detail in the units of Block 8. 20.7 Advantages and weaknesses of survey research. Survey research has the following advantages. Survey research is relatively inexpensive, especially self-administrated surveys. Survey research is useful in describing the characteristics of a large population, demographic structure of population, and its emerging trends and patterns. Survey research can be administered from remote locations using mail, email, or telephone. Consequently, very large samples are feasible, making the results statistically significant even when analyzing the multiple variables. In survey research, one can ask many questions about a given topic, which gives considerable flexibility to the analysis. We can choose different ways of administrating a survey, from face-to-face interviews to telephone and email. One can use any mode of collecting data depending on one's requirement and limitations. Unlike qualitative methods, survey research is carried out through standardized questions which make measurements more precise by enforcing uniform definitions upon the participant. Standardization ensures that similar kinds of data are collected from groups and interpreted comparatively between group study, implying more objectivity and higher reliability. Following are some of the common problems with survey research. A preoccupation with standardization results in designing questions in a very general terms to make them minimal appropriate for all respondents. This could lead to simplifications, and one may end up missing what may be most appropriate to many respondents. Survey research is inflexible in the sense that it requires a precise study design. Everything must be worked out in advance. The tools to be used and the method of administrating the tools. In order to make a survey methodologically sound, it should remain unchanged throughout the period of data collection. In order to make the survey viable and meaningful, the researchers has to make sure that the large proportion of selected respondents are agreed to respond. This, however, may not always be an easy task to achieve. In such situations, carrying out a survey becomes difficult. Surveys also demand a great deal of attention and honesty on the part of respondents, particularly when a question is being used and the survey is self-administrated. Response may not always be willing to give such attention to filling the questionnaire. Sometimes it may be hard for participants to recall certain information or to take a clear position on controversial issues. Another problem with the survey research is that it is invariably context blind. However, in the social world, context and the environment in which the questions are being asked and the answers given is very important. For example, the respondent, if a female respondent being asked questions about the gender equality in her home, in the presence of her husband and other family members, may be very different from the same questions asked at her workplace where she is employed. Survey research can rarely see the questions of context. So, reflections and action 20.2. In his note of social surveys in the chapter Producing Data, Mitchell wrote, obviously, the constraints imposed upon data collection in normal survey work means that the sort of information collected will be of a different quality that collected by observation and by extended interviewing. Survey data likely to provide estimates of the variability and extent of different patterns of association, but they naturally do not lend themselves to following out leads or to exploring the cognitive and affective implication to the respondent of the links being studied. Read the above expert from Mitchell's new note, and in the light of your reading of Unit 20, answer the following questions on a sheet of paper. What are the constraints imposed upon data collection in normal survey work? Can you find an example of a survey that provides estimates of variability and extent of different patterns of association? For this purpose, you may use issues of Economic and Political Weekly and find an example of survey with the above material. Third, what does the term links refers to in the above passage? Does it refers to data about networks in surveys? 20.8 Conclusion. Unit 20 aimed at finalizing you with survey method and its relevance in social research. Tracing the history of survey method, it elaborates the procedure of carrying out survey and point out both its advantages and weakness. Unit 20 has prepared adequate background for you to read the details of survey design, instrumentation and execution in the next 3 units of Block 5. Further reading, we can have survey methods in social investigation by Moser and surveys in social research by Dewar and scientific social surveys and research by Young. So thank you very much. This is the end of the Unit 20.